Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And this will be another heavyweight news mashup video featuring Tyson Fury in those cuts, Daniel Dubois taking another accolade, a few thoughts on Oleksandr Teslenko because I have been getting asked about his loss, and then finishing off with a couple of thoughts on Takam and Frank Sanchez Faure. So let's begin. Tyson Fury's promoter, Frank Warren, he is going to be taking all precautions for those cuts that Tyson Fury sustained on September 14th in Las Vegas when he was fighting Otto Wallin. He won that fight by a decision, comfortably enough, but those two cuts did get worse throughout the fight. He required almost 50 stitches to really sort of piece them back together. And you can see here, very nasty cuts. And obviously the sort of concern with this is, will there be any knock-on effect, and will it impact a potential fight with Deontay Wilder for February the 22nd, 2020, which is the date everyone is aiming for. So Frank Warren is taking no chances, telling the Daily Star, "I've got a Harley Street specialist on standby to examine Tyson. Should he need a surgical incision to make sure he heals properly, then the sooner it's done, the better." 5 months might seem like a long time, but the cut in the eyebrow is so serious that he won't be allowed to do any exercise whatsoever for at least 2 months. If all goes well, that would just give him time for a 12-week training camp. We don't want to push back the date unless we have to, but the most important thing is that he is perfectly healed and fully prepared for that fight. Once his treatment has been decided, he needs as much rest as he can get at home with his family. He has to focus on the benefits of taking it really easily. Fortunately, there are huge incentives for him to be right on the money for the Wilder fight. Frank Warren's statements to the Daily Star. And yeah, that is the sort of key thing here now. How much time is it going to take Tyson Fury to get right? And Warren is saying that he wants Fury to be doing no exercise for the best part of 2 months. And that may actually cause a little bit of a conflict with Tyson Fury and his trainer Ben Davison, who actively work Tyson Fury out, not just boxing skills and drills, etc., but generally they just spend time working out, and that is for the benefit, for the most part, for Tyson Fury's well-being, his state of mind, his mental health. So I guess, what does no exercise mean? Does that mean no boxing related sort of, not just sparring, but other things that may allow the cut to sort of open up? Is he allowed to swim, or is he allowed to do other sort of low impact type exercise? I guess that's the question. But everyone seems very invested in getting to this February the 22nd, 2020 date. And Frank Warren, the message is there that if he's not right, they'll push it back, but they are trying to give every opportunity to heal those cuts. And yeah, those cuts were pretty nasty, and it could take some considerable time to heal. I'm not convinced that the rematch happens on that date, but we shall see. What do you make of it all? Moving on, Daniel Dubois has picked up another accolade. He has been awarded the Best Young Boxer by the Boxing Writers Club. The Boxing Writers Club formed in 1951, and he is the fourth heavyweight to win the award, and the first since Frank Bruno back in 1985. The others were Joe Erskine in 1955 and Joe Bugner in 1969. And of this accolade that Dubois has been bestowed, so you can see here on screen, there's two parts to it. Dubois says, "I am genuinely thrilled to be voted Best Young Boxer by the BWC. There were many strong contenders for the award, and I am honoured that my progress in the sport is commended by the winning of such a prestigious honour." And the second part of the sort of quote from Dubois says, "I know I am following in the footsteps of many, many greats, and it is my intention to emulate their achievements." And Daniel Dubois, I think it can't be denied that he is one of the hottest prospects in all of boxing. And he's starting to enter that stage of his career where he's morphing from prospect into fringe contender and ultimately contender level status. And another sort of half or dozen sort of fights or so, the seasoning over the next sort of 12 to 18 months. It won't be too long before he is contending for a title, and he really is going to be a danger to anyone in the heavyweight division. That performance against Nathan Gorman really did put the division on notice, and I predict big things for Dubois in the coming years. Moving on, Carlos Takam, the veteran heavyweight contender, says he's happy with his performance against Craig Lewis in the United States. That was at the weekend, and in a press release you can see here, he says, "I'm very happy to have made my first fight in the United States. It's a beautiful entrance. It's a dream for me to box in the United States in the field of legends like Ali, Holyfield and Mike Tyson. Many thanks to my promoter, Joe DeGuardia, my team, all my fans around the world. US fans, get ready for more exciting moments coming soon." And so he beat Craig Lewis unanimous decision over 10 rounds at 99-91. That was 2 cards and 1 for 96-94. And this is a fight I haven't managed to catch yet, so obviously I'm just going by the reports here, but I have heard he didn't exactly look sparkling or terribly convincing in that performance, but it's a win nonetheless. And you sort of get the indication from that statement that Takam will continue to campaign in the United States. At 38 now, it sort of remains to be seen where they can take him. Will he be able to get into another decent contender level fight? Hopefully it's not more of the same in terms of the guys like Craig Lewis, and no disrespect for him, but he is a high level sort of journeyman type character. Okay, so moving on, talking about Oleksandr Teslenko, his shock loss to Shondell Winters just over the weekend. This was something that I was asked a few different questions about in my last heavyweight news mashup video. I hadn't covered the fight, the loss to Winters, because I didn't catch the fight live. So generally, if I watch a fight live, I'll always do a post-fight review, but it was the next day when I caught that, so I decided to leave it. I did tweet about it upon finding out the result, and that was another, unbeaten prospect in Teslenko biting the dust. And I have been asked my thoughts on that fight, and really it was a case where the third round was quite critical for Teslenko. He had Winters hurt and he thought he could get him out of there. He unloaded the tank, really sort of gave Winters everything, and he was able to see out the round. And after that, Teslenko, he never really recovered, never caught a second wind, and there have been some concerns about his gas tank in prior fights, specifically the one before that, which was against Fabio Maldonado, who looked at quite tired in that one late on. So this was a case where he, got caught by several really good shots, and was it round 4, round 5, he did start to take a bit of a pasting. He showed a really good chin actually, but Winters just kept coming, even though he was getting hurt at times too. His powers of recuperation were quite good, and he was able to take advantage of the tired Oleksandr Teslenko. Ultimately, Teslenko just kept taking too many punches, and it caught up with him. He was taken out, was it the 5th or 6th round? But it was a good performance by Winters, who proved that, he does have good powers of recuperation. The commentators were noting one of his previous wins had been dropped 3 times in the fight, but was able to rally back and knock out the opponent. So maybe Teslenko should have sort of borne that in mind when he started to unload the kitchen sink on Winters in the 3rd round. Ultimately, his gas tank and not being able to catch a second win, being completely depleted, it did catch up with him in this fight. So Teslenko, he's still very talented, and I think he can make his way in the heavyweight division, but they're going to have to try do something about these stamina issues. But also, Teslenko will also be more wary the next time he has someone hurt, not to completely go in for the kill, because if they're not as hurt as you think, they can rally back and stop you, and that will be in the back of his mind now, I'm sure. But I do think he can come again. He is a talented fighter, and I'm not writing him off at this point in his career. And just finishing off with Frank Sanchez Faure. So Sky Sports, and thank you to subscriber Adam Fahey for pointing me to this, they often do these sort of, or periodically, these heavyweight profile pieces on sort of, I don't want to say obscure heavyweights, but ones that aren't necessarily on the radar of a lot of fight fans. And one of them is Frank Sanchez Faure. He has kind of been campaigning to some extent in obscurity. He's a Cuban, allegedly 27 years old, but he looks far older than that. He's 6'4", 78-inch reach, 13-0 at the moment. He just recently came off a win over Victor Bisbal, knocked a grossly out of shape Victor Bisbal out in, what was it, about half a dozen rounds or so. So, yeah, Frank Sanchez Faure, what do I make of his chances in the heavyweight division? Well, I need to see more, but he needs to actually step up the competition to some extent. But his co-manager, Michael Barrow, has told Sky Sports that Faure is not daunted by the prospect of facing UK-based rivals feels the likes of Anthony Joshua and is confident Cuba's former amateur champion will fulfill his potential as a professional. He says Frank would consider a fight against any one of the UK's big names immediately, especially Anthony Joshua. However, the more likely scenario for Frank is to continue making a name for himself fighting on US television over the next 12 months. And that is the more likely scenario because he's an unknown commodity, an unknown heavyweight prospect. He's not getting any big fights against any of the big names anytime soon. He needs another year and a half to really build his profile and work his way to a fight. He says he will fight again on US television in November, and I believe will quickly advance past other prospects in the US and UK because of his incredible amateur pedigree, combination of speed, power, and unmatched desire to win. That is Frank Sanchez Faure's manager, Michael Borrell. So, I mean, this is sort of a case where a promoter hyping up his own man. That's to be expected. We need to see more of Faure to really get a Frank Sanchez Faure to get an indication of how good he is. At this moment, he's not on my radar as one of the top 10 prospects within the heavyweight division. But, one or two good performances can change perceptions quickly. So I think a lot of us will wait with interest to see how he goes going forward. Anyway, what do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.